Imagine this. You wake up to a world where everything familiar has changed drastically. It's not science fiction. It's a reality that could be triggered by any number of crises, from natural disasters to economic collapse, from pandemics to power grid failures. And when the chips are down, it's not just about surviving the immediate aftermath. It's about having the skills, knowledge, and resources to sustain life in the long haul. So, how prepared are you for such an eventuality? In a post-crisis world, food is more than just sustenance. It's a lifeline, a beacon of hope, a way to keep the human spirit alive and kicking. And that's where seeds come into play. They are tiny packets of potential, ready to grow into nutritious fruits, vegetables, and grains. Knowing how to farm, how to coax life from the earth, is a skill of unparalleled worth. And while we're on the topic of skills, let's not forget about animal husbandry. Raising livestock is a time-honored tradition, providing not just food, but also valuable products like wool and leather. Hunting and fishing, too, are skills that can fill the pantry and keep the stomach satisfied. But let's be real. In the aftermath of a crisis, you might not have immediate access to fresh produce or game. That's where stockpiling comes into the picture. Beans, rice, flour, and sugar, these are the staples of life, the backbone of any survival diet. They're easy to store, have a long shelf life, and can be used in a multitude of recipes. And then there are MREs, meals ready to eat, and canned foods. These are your convenience options, ready to eat with minimal preparation. They're not gourmet dining, but in a survival situation, they're a godsend. So let's recap. In a crisis situation, your survival depends on seeds, farming skills, animal husbandry, hunting, fishing, and a well-stocked pantry. It's about more than just filling your belly. It's about nourishing your body, maintaining your health, and keeping your spirits high. Remember, when it comes to survival, your food strategy is your lifeline. Plan wisely, prepare thoroughly, and you'll be ready to face whatever comes your way. Because in a world turned upside down, the ability to feed yourself and your loved ones is the key to making it through. Water, the essence of life. But in a crisis, it can also be your biggest enemy. Imagine a world where the tap no longer provides safe, drinkable water. Sounds daunting, right? This is why having clean water and knowing how to purify it is critical in a survival situation. Remember, you can survive for weeks without food, but only a few days without water. In a crisis, water sources can become contaminated, making them unsafe to drink. Consuming contaminated water can lead to sickness or even death. So it's essential to have a plan to purify your water. There are several methods to purify water. Boiling is one of the most basic and effective methods. It kills most types of disease-causing organisms. However, it's not always practical, especially when fuel resources are limited. This is where water purifying tools come into play. Consider investing in water purifying bottles or life straws. These handy devices can filter out most harmful bacteria and parasites, providing you with safe drinking water in minutes. There are also purification tablets and chemicals that can disinfect water in a pinch. For those planning to stay put in a single location, consider water pump and filter combos or large filtration devices. These can purify large amounts of water at once, making them ideal for a group of survivors. But what about storing water? It's recommended to store at least 1 gallon of water per person per day. In a crisis, having a supply of clean, stored water can be a lifesaver. Store your water in clean, food-grade containers and keep them in a cool, dark place to prevent the growth of algae and bacteria. So, secure your water sources and make them safe. Remember, in a survival situation, the difference between life and death can be as simple as a clean glass of water. In a survival scenario, illness or injury can be a death sentence. The world around you has changed, but the human body has not. It's still prone to disease, infections, and injuries. When you're out of reach from modern medical facilities, it's up to you to have the skills and supplies needed to keep yourself and others healthy. Medical skills are an invaluable asset in a crisis situation. Knowing how to treat a wound, recognize the symptoms of an infection, or perform CPR could be the difference between life and death. It's a good idea to have a solid understanding of basic first aid, but don't stop there. The more you know about medicine and the human body, the better equipped you'll be to handle any medical emergencies that come your way. But knowledge alone isn't enough. You need to have the right tools and supplies on hand. This includes over-the-counter medicines for pain, fever, allergies, and common ailments. Prescription medicines are also important, especially if you or anyone in your group has a chronic condition. Remember to stock up on antibiotics, as infections can become serious threats without proper treatment. Surgical tools, such as scalpels, forceps, and sutures, are also crucial. They can be used to perform minor surgeries, treat wounds, or even save a life in extreme situations. First aid supplies like bandages, gauze, and antiseptics are essential for treating injuries and preventing infections. And let's not forget about vitamins and supplements. In a survival scenario, you may not always have access to a balanced diet. Vitamins can help fill in the nutritional gaps and keep your immune system strong. Hygiene is another critical aspect of health in a survival scenario. Personal hygiene products, including soap, toothpaste, and feminine hygiene products, help prevent the spread of disease and maintain morale. Remember, a healthy survivor is a surviving survivor. So make sure you're prepared with the medical skills, knowledge, and supplies you'll need to keep yourself and others healthy when the unexpected happens. Every tool in your arsenal increases your chances of survival. That's a mantra worth remembering when it comes to survival gear. Let's start with clothing. In crisis scenarios, your wardrobe needs to be more than just fashionable. It needs to be functional. Think about durable, weather-resistant clothing that can protect you from the elements. This includes items like waterproof boots, wool socks, thermal underwear, and a sturdy jacket. Don't forget gloves and hats, too. They're essential for safeguarding your extremities from cold weather and potential injuries. Next, let's talk about portable shelters. Tents and tarps are crucial for creating a temporary home away from home. Whether you're stranded in the wilderness or forced to evacuate your home, a portable shelter can provide much-needed protection from harsh weather conditions. But remember, a good shelter is only as effective as its setup, so practice assembly before you're in a pinch. Now, onto tools for construction and repair. It's hard to overstate their importance in a survival scenario. A good multi-tool can serve many purposes, from opening cans to cutting rope and more. A sturdy knife is also a must-have, useful for everything from preparing food to self-defense. Let's not forget about sewing kits. In a long-term survival situation, the ability to mend your clothing and gear can be a game changer. A simple needle and thread can extend the life of your gear and keep you warm and protected. Finally, consider mechanical tools. A basic set might include a screwdriver, pliers, a wrench, and a hammer. These tools will allow you to repair equipment, build shelters, and even create makeshift weapons if necessary. Remember, these are just the basics. Your personal needs and environment will dictate what additional tools and gear are essential for your survival. Your gear is your lifeline in the wilderness. So choose wisely, prepare thoroughly, and always remember, survival isn't about the fittest, it's about the most prepared. When the grid goes down, how do you keep the lights on? It's a question we've all pondered during a power outage, but in a crisis scenario, the answer becomes a matter of survival. We're talking about generating and storing power, an essential skill in any survival toolkit. First up, solar power. Harnessing the energy of the sun isn't just for fancy smart homes, it's a sustainable, renewable resource that can keep your essentials up and running. Portable solar panels, solar chargers, and solar-powered devices are becoming more affordable and efficient, making them an excellent investment for any survivalist. Next, let's talk about hand-crank generators. These devices might seem a bit old school, but they're a reliable source of power when you need it most. All it takes is a bit of elbow grease and you've got yourself some electricity. They're compact, portable, and don't rely on fuel, making them a perfect addition to your survival gear. Now, on to batteries. Yes, the humble battery, often overlooked, yet essential. From powering flashlights and radios to more advanced equipment, batteries are a staple in any survival scenario. Stock up on a variety of sizes and don't forget a battery tester to ensure they're still good to go. Finally, let's touch on wind turbines. You might be thinking, that's a bit much, isn't it? But small, portable wind turbines are a viable option for generating power, especially in areas where sunlight might be limited. Like solar power, it's a renewable resource, and it's also a fantastic way to diversify your power supply. Remember, when it comes to survival, redundancy is key. Having multiple methods of generating power ensures you're not left in the dark when you need it most. So, invest in solar, wind, and hand-crank power options, and stock up on those batteries. Remember, power is not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's the lifeblood of your survival gear, powering everything from your communication devices to your cooking equipment. So when the grid goes down, you'll be ready to power up and face whatever comes your way. In a post-crisis world, you need more than just survival skills. Yes, it's crucial to have food, water, shelter, and medical supplies. But what about when those supplies start to dwindle? That's when commodities become your new currency. And today we're focusing on two in particular: alcohol and tobacco. Now, before you dismiss this idea, think about it for a moment. In a world where the usual currency has lost its value, what do people want? They want items that can provide comfort, aid in relaxation, or serve practical purposes. Alcohol and tobacco can serve all these needs. Alcohol, for instance, isn't just for toasting to your resilience in the face of adversity. It's also a valuable disinfectant, can be used as a solvent, and, if you're careful, can even serve as a fuel source in a pinch. Knowing how to produce your own alcohol could be a game changer. It's a skill that requires time and practice to perfect. But once you've got it down, you've got a commodity that's in high demand. Then there's tobacco. Now, we're not promoting smoking, but in a post-crisis world, tobacco can be a valuable commodity. It's a plant that's relatively easy to grow and cure, and it has a long shelf life. Like alcohol, it's a comfort item that people might be willing to trade valuable items for. And let's not forget, these commodities aren't just valuable for trade. They can also serve as a form of social currency, helping to foster relationships and alliances in a post-crisis community. In tough times, sharing a bottle of homemade wine or a hand-rolled cigar can go a long way in building trust and camaraderie. Remember, commodities are currency in a crisis. Having a stockpile of trade commodities like alcohol and tobacco and the skills to produce them could mean the difference between just surviving and thriving in a post-crisis world. Heat, light, transportation all require fuel. It's easy to take for granted, but in a post-crisis world, having a reliable fuel source can mean the difference between life and death. In our modern world, we're accustomed to simply flicking a switch or turning a dial to generate heat, cook our food, or power our vehicles. But when those conveniences are stripped away, we need to think differently about fuel. Let's start with gasifiers. In layman's terms, a gasifier is a device that converts organic material like wood or biomass into gas. This gas can then be used for heating, cooking, or even powering engines. Gasifiers are a fantastic example of repurposing nature's resources in a sustainable and efficient way. Next up, we've got agitators. This might be a new term for some of you. An agitator is essentially a device that helps mix and blend fuels to ensure a smooth, consistent burn. It's particularly useful when you're dealing with solid fuels like wood or coal. And of course, we can't forget about long-term fuel storage. If you've got access to gasoline, diesel, or even propane, it's crucial to store it properly. This means keeping it in a cool, dry place, away from direct sunlight and heat sources. And remember, safety first. Always use appropriate containers and follow all safety guidelines. Alternative fuel sources are also something to consider. From solar power to wind energy, these renewable resources can provide a consistent supply of energy when traditional sources may not be available. Finally, let's talk about fire. It's one of mankind's earliest discoveries and still one of our most important tools. Knowing how to start a fire is a fundamental survival skill. But it's not just about striking a match. You need to understand the principles of fire making, from choosing the right materials to building a fire that will last. Fuel. It's not just about keeping warm, it's about staying alive. Protection is paramount in a survival scenario. When the chips are down, your safety and that of your loved ones may hinge on your ability to defend yourselves. Now, we're not talking about a Hollywood-style showdown here, but rather the practical aspect of survival. Firearms, for instance, can make a world of difference. Whether for hunting game or warding off threats, a reliable firearm is an asset. But remember, a firearm without ammunition is just a fancy club. Stockpiling ammunition, therefore, is just as crucial. Shotguns, rifles, handguns, each has its own purpose, and it's important to have a variety of ammo to match. But guns and ammo are only part of the equation. Bladed weapons like knives and axes also have their place in a survival kit. They're versatile tools, good for hunting, defense, and even everyday tasks like chopping wood or preparing food. A sturdy, sharp blade can be a lifesaver in more ways than one. Now let's talk about maintenance and repair. Firearms are intricate machines, and like all machines, they can break down. Knowing how to fix a jammed gun or replace a worn-out part could mean the difference between life and death in a survival situation, so consider investing in a basic gunsmithing course or a good repair manual. Moreover, in a long-term survival scenario, the ability to build your own firearms could become invaluable. It's a complex skill, no doubt, but one that could pay dividends when supplies are scarce. In conclusion, when it comes to weapons and ammo, the key is to be prepared. Have the right tools, the right knowledge, and the right mindset. And always remember, these are tools of last resort. The goal is survival, not combat. Remember, your safety is in your hands. When the world goes silent, how do you reach out? Picture this. The grid's down, cell towers are non-operational, and there's no internet. How do you connect with others or call for help? Communication, folks, is paramount in a crisis situation and can often mean the difference between life and death. Now, let's talk about ham radios. These bad boys can send and receive signals over long distances. They're independent of any infrastructure, which makes them a reliable go-to in a crisis situation. But remember, operating a ham radio requires a license, so it's wise to get one before disaster strikes. Walkie-talkies are another excellent communication tool. They're portable, easy to use, and most importantly, they don't rely on cell towers. And if you're with a group, they can help keep everyone connected within a certain radius. Then there's the good old-fashioned signaling devices. We're talking flares, mirrors, and smoke signals. These can be used to signal for help or to communicate with others from a distance. In a pinch, even a flashlight or a whistle can be a lifesaver. But what about when all else fails, when there's no electricity, no batteries, and you're out of flares? That's when non-digital communication methods come into play. Morse code, for instance, is a simple yet effective means of communication. It can be tapped out, flashed with a light, or even whistled. It's a universal language that's understood around the globe, and it doesn't stop there. Learning basic sign language or developing your own set of signals can also come in handy. Remember, the key here is to be versatile and adaptable. In a world where everything comes to a standstill, staying connected with others can bring much-needed help, provide comfort, and even save lives. So, get those ham radios, learn Morse code, and always have a plan for reaching out when the world goes silent. Remember, communication can be the difference between life and death. A roof over your head, it's more than just shelter in a crisis. In the face of disaster, the ability to construct a reliable shelter can make the difference between survival and catastrophe. It's not just about having a place to sleep. A well-built shelter offers protection from the elements, a sense of security, and a base for your survival efforts. So, what do you need to build a durable shelter? First and foremost, you need the right tools. A sturdy hammer, reliable nails, a sharp saw, and a set of screwdrivers are all essential for construction. These tools allow you to manipulate and assemble building materials, creating structures that can withstand harsh conditions. But having the tools is just half the battle. You also need to know how to use them. Knowledge of construction principles is crucial. This includes understanding how to create a stable structure, knowing which materials are best for different conditions, and being able to repair any damage that your shelter might sustain. It's this combination of tools and knowledge that will allow you to build a shelter that can truly stand the test of time. Now let's talk about building materials. In an ideal world, you'd have access to plenty of wood, metal, and concrete. But in a crisis, you might have to make do with what you can find. This could be anything from fallen trees and broken furniture to discarded car parts and rubble. The key is to be resourceful and adaptable, using whatever materials you can find to create a safe and sturdy shelter. Finally, don't forget about insulation. In harsh weather conditions, a well-insulated shelter can keep you warm and dry, providing much-needed comfort in a crisis. This could be as simple as using leaves and grass for a natural insulation, or as complex as installing synthetic insulation materials, if you have them at hand. In the end, remember this. Your shelter is not just a structure, it's your fortress. It's a barrier between you and the outside world, a place where you can rest, plan, and recover. So equip yourself with the right tools, arm yourself with knowledge, and be ready to adapt to your surroundings. Remember, your shelter is your fortress. When staying put is not an option, how do you move? This is a question that often takes a back seat in survival discussions, but its importance cannot be overstated. Mobility can mean the difference between thriving and mere survival. Bicycles are a reliable, fuel-free transportation option. They're quiet, easy to repair, and can traverse a variety of terrains. The beauty of bicycles is their simplicity. No need for gasoline or complicated engines, just your own energy and the open road. In a crisis, they become a valuable asset, whether for scouting, hunting, gathering supplies, or escaping danger. But what if you need to move more than just yourself and a backpack? That's where solar-powered vehicles come in. Imagine a world without gas stations, without a steady supply of fuel. In such a scenario, vehicles that run on renewable energy sources like the sun can be a lifeline. They can help transport larger loads, cover greater distances, and even provide a mobile shelter if needed. Solar-powered vehicles might sound futuristic, but they are becoming increasingly commonplace and could be a worthwhile investment for the prepared survivalist. There's also an option that combines human and animal power, animal-drawn carts. Horses, donkeys, and even large dogs can be trained to pull carts. These modes of transport harken back to simpler times, but in a post-crisis world, they could once again become essential. Animal-drawn carts can carry heavy loads, including people, over long distances. They're also a viable option in areas where roads have become impassable for vehicles. These are just a few examples of how to stay mobile in a survival scenario. Each method has its pros and cons, and the best choice will depend on your unique situation. The key is to plan ahead, consider your options, and be ready to adapt. In the end, remember that mobility is about more than just transportation. It's about adaptability, resourcefulness, and the willingness to move when necessary. Remember, mobility can be a game changer in a survival scenario. Knowledge is power, and in a survival scenario, it's your greatest weapon. As we navigate through this unpredictable world, it's crucial to arm ourselves with the right information. Imagine a library in your backpack, a trove of survival books and manuals to guide you when there's no internet, no experts around the corner. From identifying edible plants to performing basic first aid, these books can be your lifeline. They can teach you how to navigate using the stars, how to build a shelter, or how to purify water. The importance of these books cannot be overstated. They're not just paper and ink. They're survival in your hands. But knowledge isn't just about survival. It's also about thriving and creating a sense of normalcy in the midst of chaos. This is where bartering skills come into play. In a post-crisis world, money might not hold the same value, but skills and goods, they're the new currency. Maybe you know how to fix a broken radio, or perhaps you're an expert at canning food. These skills can be traded for other goods and services, creating a new kind of economy, one based on mutual aid and cooperation. And speaking of cooperation, let's not forget the importance of leadership abilities. In a crisis, communities often form as people come together for mutual support. Being able to effectively lead and manage these communities can make a significant difference in survival. Leadership isn't just about making decisions, it's about inspiring hope, fostering unity, and creating a sense of purpose. To wrap it up, when it comes to survival, knowledge and skills are as essential as food, water, and shelter. They can make the difference between just surviving and thriving. So, stock up on those survival books, hone your skills, and cultivate your leadership abilities. Remember, in a crisis, your mind is your best tool. Survival is not just physical, it's also mental. This phrase holds a profound truth that many overlook. When the chips are down and the world is in turmoil, it's not just food, water, and shelter that keep us going. It's our spirit, our resolve, our morale. So, let's talk morale boosters. If you've ever been bored on a rainy day, imagine weeks, months, or even years in a survival scenario. You'll need something to occupy your mind and keep your spirits high. This is where books come into play. They're not just for passing time. They can provide knowledge, inspire creativity, and offer a much-needed escape from reality. But books are not the only source of mental stimulation. Games, too, are invaluable. They not only provide entertainment, but also promote critical thinking and strategic planning. Chess, cards, board games, they all have a place in your survival kit. Music is another powerful morale booster. A harmonica, a guitar, a flute. These are more than entertainment. They're tools for expression, connection, and even meditation. If you can play an instrument, great. If not, learning to play could be a beneficial way to spend downtime and keep your mind sharp. Now let's talk comfort items. These are often overlooked in survival scenarios, but they can make all the difference in the world. A soft blanket, a familiar scent, a cherished photograph, or even a stuffed animal for the little ones. These can provide a sense of normalcy and security in uncertain times. And finally, let's not forget about group activities. Singing songs around a fire, storytelling, group games. These not only boost individual morale, but also strengthen the bonds within your group. A united, happy group is far more likely to survive than a miserable, divided one. In essence, survival is as much a battle of the mind as it is of the body. So, fill your survival kit with not only necessities but also morale boosters. Remember, a strong mind makes for a strong survivor. We've journeyed through the essentials of survival in a post-crisis world. From the seeds that sustain life to the tools that build shelter, from the power that lights our nights to the knowledge that guides our days, we've covered it all. We've underscored the importance of preparedness, of having not just the items, but the skills to use them. It's not just about surviving, but thriving. Now, ask yourself again, are you prepared?